Today I'm giving you tips and cut setting suggestions to cut frosted craft paper with your silhouette. I participated in an online craft event recently, and Leah Griffith was one of the presenters, and she offered this file and instructions for making this magnolia wreath. And the magnolia is made out of crepe paper, and I just cut that by hand because there was only a few petals. But all this greenery, super intricate, was all cut with my Cameo. I used my Silhouette Cameo 4, and using the frosted craft paper from Leah Griffith. So this is the paper here. This stuff is so beautiful, and it does cut really well. Recently I'd heard a few people wondering what cut settings to use and how to be successful with it because they had some tearing when trying to cut it. And I actually did too. This was my first attempt and you can see the blade just kind of tore it up. And then this was my most recent when I perfected the cut setting. So I'm going to share those with you as well as some other tips that will help you be successful in cutting this frosted craft paper. In the description below, I'll add a link to the shop, the felt paper scissors shop, where you can get your own packets. Each of these is a 12 by 12 inch, and there's 20 pages. There's 5 of each of the 4 colors, and it's a lightweight. It's not a cardstock. It's more of a text weight paper, but with the coating on it, it can cause a little bit of difficulty in getting it to cut. It's just a really unique and special paper. The first thing you need is the paper, and you'll need some scissors. I don't like to apply the whole 12 by 12 inch sheet to the mat unless I'm going to be cutting the whole sheet because I don't want to peel it off, so I'd rather leave it in the book where it doesn't get damaged. So scissors. We'll need a sticky cutting mat. This is the standard grip mat, and I have used it a few times, but it's still nice and sticky. You'll need a brayer, and I wouldn't have thought would be as critical, but it really helps to the success of cutting this paper. So a brayer is just a roller that you use to adhere whatever it is, the materials you're cutting, to your mat. Then you'll need a silhouette. I used the Silhouette Cameo 4. I used the auto blade and the ratchet blade to test these settings, so you should be able to use any of the silhouettes, a portrait, a silhouette 1, 2, or 3. They should all work fine. You'll need a pattern to cut out. I got the pattern for this from the online event that I did. I don't think it's available anymore, but I also have the Crepe Paper Flowers book from Leah Griffith, and in the book she includes patterns to cut out of crepe paper or out of like a text weight paper, and she also includes, here we go, some text weight paper leaves. If you're going to be cutting any of those, you can either trace from the book. You can, when you buy the book, she includes the files that you can go to a website and download either a PDF or the SVG. In the SVG it says for Cricut only, but you can use them of course with your Silhouette Cameo. You just need to use a rotary blade when cutting crepe paper, but the text weight paper you can cut with a regular blade. In addition to getting the files from one of Leah Griffith's books, she also has a monthly membership where you can join and you will get access to all of the projects that she's done, all the files with instructions, and then they add on more every month. So that's a really great resource to learn how to make beautiful flowers and other projects. She does a variety of projects. Then we will also need the cut settings, which I have figured out for you, and I will share those here in just a second when we get this all going. Okay, so quick tip on how to know if your mat is the right stickiness, because I have like 2 mats here, and you know, this one is okay. I mean, you can feel it's kind of tacky, but the best way to find out if it's sticky enough is to put it on and roll it with your brayer and then fold the paper and see how it's not staying down. If it starts to peel up, then the mat is not sticky enough. I'm going to be working in the upper corner of my mat here. I have a piece of paper that's cut out the same size as the fern is that I'm going to cut out here in just a minute. And I'm just going to stick it to my mat. And even just pushing your hands down is okay, but the brayer, since it's so smooth, it really gets the paper completely adhered to the mat. And I think that's definitely a good help in doing this. Something else you want to get before you do this project, I'll put a link in the description for my resource library. So you sign up for my newsletter, it's free, and then you'll get access to my resource library where I put any of the free files that I offer my readers. You will be able to access everything in my resource library that I offer. It's free files. There's cut files, there's printables like this, just different things that I've talked about on my blog. So one of these is the My Perfect Silhouette Settings. This is a blank form that I have created for you. This cut setting sheet will let you write down the cut settings that you use for each type of material, so that next time you go to use frosted crepe paper or transparency sheets or sticker sheets, you have the right cut settings and you can just start crafting. You don't have to worry about, you know, test cuts and starting from scratch every time. The other benefit is that you can get cut settings. Like I can give you my cut settings here. I can give you all my cut settings, but different machines and different blades can behave differently. So they could be a good start, but you really want to have your own because it'll be the best for your situation. So go ahead and go download that, and then we will get started cutting the paper. So here is the cut file that I'm going to be using. This is a fern with all the little intricate cuts. I already have the paper adhered to my mat and smoothed out with the brayer, as I showed you earlier. And now I'm going to load my blade into my Silhouette Cameo. And I want to show you this because that can be one of the first problems in getting the correct cut. Here's my Cameo 4, and I'm going to go ahead and load the blade. This is the Cameo Auto Blade, the Auto Blade 2. This is the second version, and you can tell because it has the metal plate on the back that goes in the Cameo 4, the Cameo 4 Plus, or the Cameo 4 Pro. So it only works in the first blade holder. So you just go ahead and set it down in it and make sure it is pushed in all the way. I'll actually hold this just to make sure it's in. You want to make sure that there is no gap right here between the blade and the housing. Then go ahead and lock it in place. And see that it felt like it did, but there's still a gap there. Make sure it clicks into place. You can see the complete blue circle right here that shows that it locked in place. So that is a completely loaded blade. Now that my blade is loaded, I can click send. And then here is, this is tool 1. So the red lines indicate that I'm using tool 1. And for starters, this is just selected to copy paper. The settings are similar, but I've tweaked them just a little bit. Set it to cut, and I have it set to auto blade. And I can see my red lines, so I know it's going to cut. Okay, so the cut settings that I use for the frosted craft paper is a blade of 2, force of 15, 1 pass, this is the line segment overcut turned on, and a speed of 3. I did a whole bunch of test cuts. I used a blade as high as 3, but that ended up actually just cutting into my mat a little bit. I found that it was possible to cut all the way through with a blade of 2 and a force of 15. If you try these cut settings and they don't cut all the way through for you, first you want to increase the force, maybe bump it up to 20 and do a test cut. And if it still doesn't cut all the way, bump it up to 25 and so on until you get up to 33. Then increase the blade to 3, reduce the force to about 10, and start over with test cuts. You always want to go up in small increments to make sure you have the right cut setting that cuts all the way through your material but doesn't cut into your mat. Okay, so that is all ready. I'm going to load my mat. So here I have my paper and it's adhered to my mat. I'm going to set it on the platform here and line up the edge of the mat right with this gray line and make sure it's touching all the way across, and then go ahead and tap load. And now I can click send. All right, so just like every other cut, I always want to double check. Just lift a corner and make sure, and look at that, because we had just the right cut settings. It's gonna come off, so I'm gonna go ahead and unload the mat and take this to my table and take it off the mat. Now I'm going to remove the excess paper, and then I'll remove the fern from the mat. So sometimes when you're cutting things with your silhouette and you want to remove them from the mat, you'll turn it over and peel the mat off of the paper because you want to avoid curling. That's not as critical with this because a lot of times you want it to be curled afterwards, so you don't have to really do that. So we're just going to go ahead and grab the edge and carefully remove it, making sure that it did cut through everywhere. And then work your way around the outside and towards the center. All right, so that cut very nice. And then you can see I have some little pieces here. I'll just go ahead and leave those on the mat. And I'm going to use a pair of really fine tweezers to grip the edge of the paper and to work it off of the mat. So I'll start down here and just gently start lifting. And you can also work it along. You can run it along. You don't have to just tweeze it. Actually, I'm gonna give this a try here. Once we get it started, we can continue with the spatula, and then just go ahead and you can remove these pieces here if they're in your way, because they're all gonna get removed anyway. Keep using the scraper. If you've ever been trying to remove something from your mat and dropped it and it stuck to the mat again, you might want to just grab this is the protective sheet that comes on the mat. You can just set it under it, and then you don't have to worry about it re-adhering to the mat as you're working. Just be gentle. All right, if there's any little pieces that were supposed to be weeded out and just got stuck, we can go ahead and remove those with the tweezers. And there is our fern. These are some of the leftover pine needles that I had from the wreath when I made it, and I just wanted to show how real do these look. Isn't that amazing? So beautiful. Okay, well, I hope these tips helped you with the Leah Griffith frosted craft paper, and I hope you have lots of fun working with it.